Now you'll just get a blurry picture of our moving boxes being slowly unpacked into bookcases here. Okay, let's see. Do we have all our board members? I see Doug, Bryn, Dick, Marty, Julia. So we've got everyone. Excuse me, everyone. Okay. And Cameron, do we have any members of the public in a waiting room, or have they all been admitted?
No, I've admitted everyone.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, it's 7:03, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. And since this is my last meeting, unfortunately, I just took over the duty of the reflection myself. So let's see. Okay. What I'd like to share with you is a poem, a short poem from our Washington State Poet Laureate, Rena Priest, who's the first Indigenous poet to be our state's Poet Laureate. And this poem is called The Forest for the Trees. The Forest for the Trees. I have seen a tree split in two from the opposing weight of its branches. It can survive, though its heart is exposed. I have seen a country do this too. Oh, it ruins the drama when I lose the screen. Okay. I've heard an elder say that we must be like the willow, bend not to break. I have made peace this way. My neighbors clear-cut their trees, leaving mine defenseless. The arborist said they'd fall in the first strong wind. Together we stand. I see this now. I've seen a tree grow around a bicycle, a street sign, and a chainsaw, absorbing them like ingredients in a great melting pot. When we speak, whether or not we agree, the trees will turn the breath of our words from carbon dioxide back into air. Give us new breath for new words, new chances to listen, new chances to be heard. So again, that was called The Forest for the Trees by Rena Priest, the Washington State Poet Laureate. So now we have introductions and we have some visitors. So why don't we each just briefly introduce ourselves since we're a small enough group, and I'll just call on you in the order that I see you on your screen so our visitors know who everyone is. Cameron, you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Cameron Tuck. I'm the assistant planner for the city of Lake Forest Park, and I'm the staff liaison to the tree board.
Thank you. And I should have introduced myself. I'm not Dan Cassidy, I'm Margaret Cassidy, and I'm the chair of the tree board. And I see Bryn next. Oh, you're muted, Bryn.
There. I like to stay muted so that the noises from the background don't interfere. I've been on the tree board just for a short while, only a few months, and I'm outgoing. I will just be a person in general of the public in Lake Forest Park to be interested in what's going on with the tree board. There you go, Bryn Holmesy.
Thank you, Bryn. And I have Larry next, Councilmember Larry Goldman.
Hello, I'm Larry Goldman. I'm one of the members of the City Council, and I am the liaison to the tree board. And a quick question for you, Margaret. If I have updates from the City Council, would you prefer I do those at the beginning or the end of the meeting?
Let's do them at the end, maybe before Cameron goes, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then I've got Marty.
Hi, I'm Marty Byrne. I've been on the tree board for about a year, and I'm interested in how trees are managed and preserved in Lake Forest Park.
Yeah. And then I have Richard Olmsted.
I go by Dick Olmsted, and I am a tree board member for about 4 years now, and recently retired professor at the University of Washington.
Yeah. And then I have Doug. Oh, he's letting in the cat or the dog.
Cat. So
They always want to be involved in Zoom meetings.
he does, but I think my wife is cooking back in the kitchen or doing something back in the kitchen. So it's either let him in or not hear her. Anyway, we'll try. Anyway, I'm Doug Sprugel. I'm a forest ecologist, retired from UW. And I've been on the tree board for a year and a half, maybe. I can't recall, something like that.
And then let's see, Julia, last but not least of the tree board members.
I'm Julia Bent. I've been on the tree board since its inception, and I'm involved in a project on Macular Creek for riparian restoration.
Thank you. And I didn't say anything about myself. There's not much to say in relation to trees. I'm just a tree lover and was a resident of Lake Forest Park, but I don't have the specialized knowledge of these other folks. I just got involved because I care about the trees and have worked with nonprofits. So, and I am outgoing too because I've actually moved to Briar. So I'm not a Lake Forest Park resident anymore. That's why I'm excited that we have some potential new members here, because we need, with both Bryn and myself outgoing, and we're already down one member. We're short one member from the number that we can have. I was excited that we got some great applicants. The folks who are here who've applied to the tree board, do you want to introduce yourself? I see Mandy. Do you want to say a few words about yourself first?
Yes, sure. Hi, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. Yeah, my name is Mandy Parker, and my husband and I moved to Lake Forest Park this past June. And one of the reasons that we moved here is because of the trees. So I was really excited to hear that there's an opportunity to get more involved with that. And we just welcomed our first baby in October. So she's a native Lake Forest Park resident there. Yeah.
Welcome, and thank you for applying.
Yeah, thank you.
And then let's see, I've got two. I see Sandra and Melissa. And now, Sandra, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, my name is Sandy, Sandy LeVar, and I've lived in Lake Forest Park for about 10 years. We have a lot of trees, and a couple of years ago, I used to work for City of Seattle Urban Forestry, and so I'm a project manager and business analyst. So I am very involved in the environment and trees, and the canopy is my thing, and
Great.
kind of getting the constituency out there to know more about education and things like that, about how to improve the canopy.
Perfect. Thank you. And Melissa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. First of all, I go by Melissa Ann. So
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
that's okay. It's not usual around here. And I feel like I'm kind of going to sound like I'm pulling from lots of different people. I lived in Shoreline for 20 years, and my family moved to Lake Forest Park just at the beginning, right? Like 1 minute before COVID set in. So it was a lovely place to be kind of holed up here. I feel like I should show you what I'm looking at as
Oh, nice. Yeah.
as I'm sitting here in our meeting. I'm looking out at the trees. So we were very intentional wanting to come to Lake Forest Park. I now am a high school chemistry teacher, and but before that worked in communications, some nonprofit things like that. So, and have always just trees. I don't have some of the specialized knowledge, but the trees, like everybody here seems to say, have been in my heart. My great grandparents, my great great grandparents homesteaded in the Northwest, and my great grandparents were lumberjacks and things. So I've grown up with stories of our trees and things. And even though they cut them down, they cared deeply about what we have. So I'm excited to be here and hopefully this opportunity.
Great, thank you so much. And I see Shavik. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Shavik Rai Chaudhary. Moved to Seattle from Atlanta, and our home in Atlanta was surrounded by trees, so I used to love there, and that's the reason I moved to Lake Forest Park, because it was such a wonderful area. The reason I got involved is also because, you know, the lot next door to my house, there's a proposal to cut down all the trees there. So I was really concerned, and we have the change.org petition that went around. It received a lot of tremendous support from everybody in the city. So I'm really excited, but unfortunately, we've not gotten a solid response from the city itself. There's no records of the trees that were cut there before. So that's the reason why I'm interested in participating with the tree board, to sort of, you know, understand what are the gaps and how can we keep our city accountable and protect our trees.
Okay, thank you. Are you, what neighborhood do you live in?
155th Street.
155th?
Yes.
Kind of, like behind Sheridan Market, kind of?
That's right, exactly, on the same
Okay.
street as Sheridan Market.
Okay, yeah, I know that project you're talking about. Okay, thank you for coming. Let's see. We've got Mike D. Would you
Howdy,
like
Mike
to-
D with, sure,
Sorry.
thank you. Howdy, Mike D with the Lake Forest Park Citizens Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. And Miles Anderson, would you like to introduce yourself? Or of course you don't have to, but.
I'm a arborist in Seattle area. I do implementation of pruning specs right now. So just interested in seeing Lake Forest Park.
So have you applied to be on the tree board, or are you here just as a member of the public joining the meeting?
I had applied to the city position recently.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for coming.
It barely made it, thanks.
And then there's someone who I'm guessing is named Randy, because it says iPhone Randy. Would you, whoever that is, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's Randy Sabonga, and I'm here as an observer. I'm on the Lake Forest Park Stewardship Foundation board, and interested in figuring out how we can possibly pair up with the tree board on some
perfect
meaningful issues.
Thank you for coming, Randy.
You bet.
Okay, thanks. I know that takes a few minutes, but I think we're a small enough group and it's good to know who everyone is here. So our next item is to approve the agenda. And I would ask if it's okay, under our old business, the last item, city incentives for retaining trees. Is it okay with everyone if we move that to the beginning of that section? Because I know that Marty may have to duck out early. Anyone opposed to that?
You don't have to, excuse me, let me interject. You don't have to do that. You have my full attention.
Okay. I didn't doubt that. I just wanted you to be able to leave if you have to leave.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so
thank
we'll
you.
keep it in order. And then we will add in Larry's report about the city council under reports and announcements. Does anyone else have any changes to the agenda? Okay, can I, Dick, yeah.
Margaret, do we want to add under new business consideration of finding new board chair?
Yeah, I guess that I hadn't even, that was a given for me and I forgot it needs to be on the.
Since this is your last meeting.
Yeah. Would Cameron, would that go under communication?
No, that would go under new business.
New business, okay. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I so move.
Okay, second. Okay, let's say, is anyone opposed to that? Okay, thank you. Our next item is to approve minutes. Cameron's catching up on old minutes for us. So we had September and November of last year and March of this year. Let's see, let's start with September. I can pull it up here. Did anyone have any, notice any corrections or changes or things that need to be added to September 1st, 2021's minutes?
Nope.
I didn't see anything on it myself. I don't see any hands up. By the way, if anyone notices things in the chat, it's hard. I can't really run the meeting and look at the chat at the same time. So just, flag me if I'm missing something. Okay, can I have a motion to, actually, should we do them one at a time, Cameron? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the September 1st, 2021 minutes as written? I see Doug, we've got that from Doug, a second from Bryn.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Okay, looks like those are approved. And the next ones are from November 2021. November 11th, 2021. I noticed just one, let's see. Yeah, one correction. It said at the beginning that Council member Mark Phillips was there, but then on page 2, it said Mr. Phillips was not present and was unable to provide an update on the tree code revision. I don't think he missed any meetings when last fall. Does anyone have a great memory and can remember if he was there or not? And now he's not on the council anymore. So
Yeah, well, there's something funky about that section of minutes because it talks about Tim Hone doing this and that. And Tim left the board months ago. So there's something weird about that whole section.
Why don't we, is it okay if we just table these minutes till the next meeting and we can double check what was really going on? Okay.
Yeah, my apologies.
Something maybe copied and pasted from and something got in there. Okay, then the next one should be easy because that was just last month.
We actually remember.
Let's see. So the minutes from March 2nd, 2022. I did notice on the second page, under outreach initiatives update, the last sentence is cut off. Arborist Adams indicated that while the city is unable to provide recommendations for specific companies, we were talking about outreach initiatives. I think what she was telling us, I'm not sure what she was telling us.
I remember it being something along the lines of while the city is unable to provide recommendations for specific companies, the city can provide a list of vetted tree companies. It was something along those lines.
Yeah, it's I think that's it. If arborist companies or tree companies that have signed the with their work permit application or their business license, they have attested that they've read our tree code.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the idea was to have a list we can take people off of if they've been bad people.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked a lot last meeting about the situation. I guess, is it near you, Dick? anyway, a one where people have clearly done massive damage, tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage. And it must have been, the trees we talked about were large enough that they almost have to have been done by quote, professional arborists.
Right.
But there seemed to be very little we can do to punish them.
Yeah.
And so the idea of that was to have a list to take them off of.
Yeah, and I can give a brief update about that further down the agenda, but can we think of a good phrase there where we could fill in the minutes so we could get them approved, corrected and approved? Arborist Adams indicated that while the city is unable to provide recommendations for specific companies, it should be like the city can provide a list of tree companies who have
In good standing.
attested that they have read our tree code. Does that sound right?
I think Dick just mentioned in good standing. I kind of like that phrase.
That's a good idea.
Say read and agree to adhere to. If they've read it, that's a loophole. They can get, well, oh yeah, we read it, you know, that they agree to adhere to the tree code.
Yeah, okay. Can you add that phrase there, Cameron?
Actually, Cameron, why don't you find out from whoever you find things out from what we actually can do? I mean, if that's true, we just, people who've been approved and have read the tree code and all that. But since Ashley said we couldn't provide a list of recommended people, this comes very close to a list of recommended people. So you might want to talk to the lawyers and find out what we can do.
I want to do that too, Doug. Let's talk about that some more in a minute, and after we get this approved or not approved. And actually, speaking of Doug, in the next paragraph, it said, Mr. Sprugel, and actually, you're doctor, aren't you? Do you?
Yeah, I know. We're all misters here, it looks like.
Yeah, but if you would prefer, and Dick too, right? If anyone would be
and
prefer
Julia,
to be list, and Julia, yeah. If you would prefer to be, and
I don't think it,
I
in
don't
my
care.
case, it doesn't add anything to, I'm just citizen Dick here.
okay, but if anyone wants to be, listed properly, please don't hesitate to speak up.
I don't think being a veterinarian has much to do with trees.
Well, it still shows how smart you are, Julia. It
Anyway,
says,
I'm perfectly fine with it being Mr. I think we talked about this a few months ago, and it looked awkward having Misters and doctors and Mrs. in there. And I think we decided that.
Comrade, we should all be Comrade Sprugel and Comrade Bent and Comrade Olmsted.
If you want to put in Professor Emeritus Sprugel, then we could go that way. But Professor Emeritus Sprugel and Olmsted, I presume.
No.
Anyway.
Professors Emeritus, anyway.
Mr. Comrade Sprugel expressed his discontent with the recommendation to change shall to should. This was talking about our proposed tree code amendments. And I think that was kind of a double negative. You recommended that we change shall to should.
No.
That was.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
isn't that correct?
I think it had been changed in the previous draft. It had been changed from should to shall, and I think I wanted to go back from shall to should.
Right, and we all agreed to that.
We approved that.
Yeah. So Cameron, that's just kind of there's an extra negative, and it should be something like Mr. Sprugel expressed his recommendation to change shall to should without him being discontented.
Thank you.
Yeah. Were there any other corrections on these minutes from March 2nd? Okay, can I have a motion to approve those minutes as corrected, please?
Yeah.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, but are we all they now? Because I seem to be a they there. I go by he.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, yeah, the next sentence. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So you'll correct that too. He
Yeah.
expressed his desire. Okay. So we've got 3 corrections there, and we've got a motion to approve with those 3 corrections and a second. Is anyone opposed? Okay. Okay, so next month we'll look over the old November minutes. Okay, our next item is citizen comments. Do any of our citizens who are here want to make a comment?
Mike has his hand up.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Sorry, I couldn't see that.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Mike D with the Lake Forest Park Citizens Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight. As you're reviewing the notes, I wanted to thank you all for being one of the few citizen groups that is actually brave enough to record your meetings. And so as you're trying to put the notes together and double check them, those recordings should be available for both you and the public somewhere to be able to check stuff like that. I also appreciate the style of meeting that you're using where people can kind of raise their hands and make a comment and add to the chat. Also, a number of the city groups, commissions, and meetings don't seem to be using that style or this style. And it's unfortunate because this style is a little closer to more of an actual public meeting if you were in person. The only piece that I would add to it would be being able to chat to other people in the meeting without involving the whole group. It's kind of like if you were at a meeting in person, you could go walk up and say, hey, did you make it to that last meeting? Did you understand? You can talk to someone kind of out of the big group, and it's helpful for people. So thank you, everybody. And
are you saying, Mike, that feature is not available in the chat? Can you only chat with the whole group?
Everyone or to Cameron? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can that
It used to be everybody. I suspect somebody must have changed a preference or something on the host, Cameron.
Yeah.
I could figure it out. Whenever I generate the meetings, I just go with the standard settings that Zoom already has in place. I've never changed them around to make it so that people can't chat amongst themselves, but I can look into changing that.
Okay. I'll put that, I'll put a kind of a flag for the next meeting to see if we can figure that out.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? I don't see anything. Okay. Thank you. Our next item is meeting dates. The next meeting will be.
Apologies for interrupting.
I'm sorry, Larry.
Someone does have their hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
Shavik.
yeah, Shavik. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand.
Yeah, I think this was a continuation of the introduction piece. The situation on the street, 155th Street. We have like tremendous support, but we haven't heard back from the city. I think our last communication was with Ashley, but despite emailing her several times before her departure, we didn't hear back. So would love to get guidance from the tree board on what we can do, in these cases. There are a bunch of neighbors who are interested in actually doing a public record request and getting details from the city. But I've also talked to folks in the Lake Forest Park Stewardship Foundation, and even they want to genuinely help, but they can't get access to city records of what permits were granted to cut down those trees just like less than 10 years ago. So that is something I would love to get guidance from the tree board from.
Cameron, do you think can you help him with that? And I mean, not right now in the meeting, but can you help him find those records and
Sure.
make sure he gets communicated with?
I think so. I would say the off the top of my head, usually what I tell citizens whenever they discuss a public records request or wanting to see records from the city, there's a form that's available on our website. And if you fill it out, there you can drop it off at City Hall, or email it to our public records officer, and then they will route the public records request to appropriate staff, and then depending on I'm trying to think. Depending on the availability of records, we'll be able to send you copies of them essentially. And you can either request to view them in person, review them in person at City Hall, or get printed copies, or get electronic copies.
Thanks, Cameron. So actually I went through that process and they only seem to have details about the current project, but there used to be 11 trees on the property, only 3 remain, right? So I was more interested in 2015, there was a permit issued and seems from, records that at least, in the recommendation from the arborist, he had only suggested cutting down a very few number of those trees. So how did we miss, that? That is one thing I want to actually, understand. And for the current, issue as well, I think I did go and see the plan, so I know that they want to cut down the trees that remain as well. And us being on the critical region, I think it's concerning for a lot of our neighbors that it might affect the stability of the hill that our house is located on. I can follow offline with you if that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make sure I'll do my best to make sure someone from the city gets in touch with you. And can you put, well, I guess if you communicate with Cameron, he can give me your email or your phone too, if you're comfortable with that, just so I can stay in the loop and make sure someone gets in touch with you.
Yes, I send it to everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, were there any other comments, citizen comments? Am I missing anything in the chat? Besides Shavik's address. Okay, I see that. Okay. So the next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, May 4th, and we're still planning to be virtual. At our last meeting, we talked about the possibility of going to a hybrid meeting where those who want to attend in person can be at City Hall and those who want to be online could do that. But it's just a moot point for now because apparently I mean, maybe Larry can tell us more, but the city's technology for doing that, it either isn't up yet or it's just getting going. We need to find out if commissions can use it.
I can give you an update now if you like.
Sure.
So the plan is the April 28th City Council meeting will be the first hybrid meeting where the City Council members will be in City Hall, and public members and anybody can either attend in person or via Zoom or the virtual system. My understanding from what I've been told by city staff is that this will be fully available to committees as well, and that it'll be set up so that the same AV system will be available in the upstairs council chambers and also the downstairs meeting rooms. So my understanding is that potentially as early as May, your committee, the tree board, it would be entirely your decision. You would have the options of either remaining fully virtual or switching to a hybrid.
Okay,
Cameron,
thanks.
did you have anything else that you've heard on your end?
Yeah, city staff that act in a liaison capacity to city boards and commissions, we're being trained we're getting training on the 12th and the 14th on how to use the updated system, essentially. So by the May meeting, I will be able, or I'll know how to use the system. And if the tree board would like to move to having hybrid meetings, then I will be trained already on how to do that, and I'll be able to assist you all.
If it's okay, since I'm outgoing, I'll just leave it to those of you who remain to decide in May and see what you want to do. So I'm gonna say it looks like it should still be a Zoom meeting in May, and then you guys can decide from there on out what you want to do. just speaking of meetings, I just wanted to add in here, it's not our meeting, but I saw posted on the city's website, there's an event on Earth Day that I thought all of us might be interested in. It's on April 23rd, and it's the Lake Forest Park, excuse me, Lake Forest Park People for Climate Action. It's being held on Zoom, and it sounds like they have some really interesting speakers, some of whom are like very relevant to what we do. So that's, if you look on the city's website, the info is on there. Excuse me. We had nothing listed under communication. Let's see. Okay, so we're just going, I guess, in the order listed for our old business. The first item is Macular Creek Restoration Project. So that's Julia's project. If you want to give us an update, Julia.
Okay, well, I'd say it's 95% completed at this point. We had the plants, well, in the last week of February, on Thursday, we had 2 10-yard truckloads of Arborist chips deposited at the intersection of 182nd and Perkins Way, in that very open area, which is very weedy, even though we had already treated the weeds there. And with the hope of suppressing the weeds. Interestingly, I tried to purchase the chips from Pacific Topsoils. And then when I learned how much it was, I said we wouldn't do it. So instead they gave them to us. So that, we did have to pay for the trucks to get it there. So it still cost about $400, but I think that will be a great aid for us in rehabilitating that very open area at the intersection there. The next day we had the majority of our plants, all of them from Storm Lake growers, who were delivered. And with the help of Marty and Dick and citizen John Brew, we moved all of them up from the pullout to the bridge across the creek. And then I had made up a spreadsheet of what plants went where, and we spent much of the day until the early afternoon distributing those plants. It ended up being 17 work hours between the 4 of us, which is pretty substantial volunteer input. Then on the following day, Tuesday, the professional crew came in with 6 people. On Wednesday, they had 8 people. They worked 10 hours both days. So that was, what, 700 hours of work planting them all. Additionally, that weekend on Sunday, I went up to Bellingham and came back Monday with the bare root plants that were at Fourth Corner Nursery. Rather than paying for shipment, I included it with a visit with a friend up there. And so I got those back, and we got those in addition to 160 willow stakes. So we shall see how they all do. Already the Downton Beaver have decapitated 4 of the smaller cedars. And a week ago, Monday, John Brew and Dick and I, well, previous to that, Cameron and I went back to Home Depot, which is a lovely thing to do, as Cameron can tell you, and got more of the cage material that Bryn, Marty, Dick, John, and I had made previously. And we protected more of the cedar trees with that. We made them that morning a week ago Monday, and then we took them down there and put them in place. I still need to go down and do a little bit more work, but the weather's been just too crappy, so I haven't. We've got about $2,000 left after all this is said and done. The grant expires the end of December, and I think what I plan to do is to use that money to purchase more trees and/or plants from Storm Lake next fall, and then put them in November, early December. And whether or not we do that professionally or do it as a volunteer, I don't know. And then the grant should terminate at the end of December. Now, as a sidelight to all of that, I met with, and this, Larry, is something that you saw when Mike Lasecki gave a presentation to the council, I believe. from King Conservation District. Do you remember that, Larry? Yeah, well, he's been tangentially involved with what I'm doing. And I met with him and we toured what I've done. And his plan is to work with the landowners above my project on the slope and do mostly ivy and other invasive removal and replanting. So if that all comes to pass, it would dovetail nicely with what I've done, what we've done. So that's pretty much the state of it. I may hire one person one day this summer just to go through and remove invasives as they come back. But frankly, I haven't seen a lot of them. You know, there's not been a lot of ivy poking up its ugly little head. So we'll see.
Wow. Julia, I missed, I didn't hear, excuse me, two things. Did you say you have $2,000 left in the grant?
That's correct, approximately.
And then I didn't hear who or what you said decapitated some of the cedars. Was it mountain beaver?
Mountain beaver.
Oh, okay.
No.
Thank you so much for all your work on this. That's fantastic. And those of you who helped distribute the plants and make the anti-critter cages. It sounds like that was vital.
We had a good party, didn't we, Bryn?
Good.
Complete with tea and muffins.
Oh, good.
I can show you the welts on my back from Julia's whips, though.
Hey, Dick and I have become experts at cutting rebar.
Cutting rebar? So these are really sturdy, super sturdy cages to protect them. Huh?
Well, it's the stakes that secure them. Yeah, they're not going to rot out. And the hope is that in 5 or 10 years, when they no longer need the cages, that they can be recycled, you know, because it's, you know, an $800 investment, really close to that now. Recycled with another project in the city, maybe at 5 Acre Wood or, you know, wherever.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Do you need anything from us, Julia, for your next
Not really.
steps? Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay, our next item is an update on the tree inventory, and that I have to ask Cameron for, because we've been kind of in limbo with Ashley having left. Have you heard any news about the grant for that, or how the city's thinking of taking that on?
I haven't, no. During our last so I'm trying to think if Steve had mentioned anything. From my understanding, the tree inventory is still on hold while the city recruits for a new arborist. And that's the only update I have at this point.
Okay. So we'll keep that on the agenda for next meeting, because I'm
Okay.
worried that it's not gonna happen this year if it doesn't get started pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bryn, I see your hand.
Yeah, Cameron, do you happen to know if they're going to use LiDAR for that again this year?
I think it would be based off of iTree. So I can't remember what iTree uses for its analysis. I don't think it's LiDAR.
I think Doug knows about this, don't you?
Yeah,
Doug?
no, the LiDAR is for making a sort of the canopy analysis. The inventory is for going around and measuring individual trees and saying, yeah, there's one 38.7 inch tree, 38 to 40 inch tree on this plot, and there's a 38 to 40 inch Doug fir in this plot, and there's a 37 inch western hemlock, and these hopefully relating them to the measurements that were taken 7 years or so ago and saying, yeah, looks like that 37 inch tree grew to a 39 inch tree. But it's an individual tree based thing where LiDAR is sort of the whole city.
Yes, the reason I ask is Randy, who's present, set up a very nice meeting with a couple of people, longtime residents from Lake Forest Park. And she was very good to set up a meeting, and we kind of discussed and learned something about what's been done in Lake Forest Park in the past, 20, 30 years, something like that. And there were two gentlemen present at this meeting. Maybe Randy probably knows them and would share their names, but they were very adamant about having LiDAR used again and not having, I mean, you can go around and waste your time and measure these trees, they said, but the canopy and the coverage, they were very, very adamant about having that measured via LiDAR.
Yeah, well, but that's not the point of this survey. The canopy coverage survey has already been done.
Oh,
What we're talking
okay.
about now is an individual tree survey. It's a separate thing.
So it's
So I
those
wasn't
specific trees then that you go out.
specific
Okay,
plots. There were 100 odd plots that were measured. I don't know when, roughly 2015. And the point of this thing is to in plots, but it's a plot-based individual tree thing. The LiDAR has already been done. I'm not, I'm supposed to be responsible for putting the report together, summarizing what the LiDAR found. I haven't done it recently, and I was going to work with Ashley on it, but I guess I'm not going to now. But
okay, maybe they were confused.
what?
And maybe they were confused. I don't know. Looks like
maybe
Randy has something to say.
Randy, did you want to say something about that?
It looked like Randy had something to say regarding that.
I'm sorry. I'm in a restaurant and I can't really speak, but yeah, at least I put the names of the other participants on the chat.
Okay.
Sorry about this.
No, that's okay. So yeah, so maybe I can be reminded for the sake of anyone else who doesn't know or has forgotten, what is our goal? Is it every 5 years? We hope to do both the tree inventory update and the canopy survey, which is the one with LiDAR.
I believe that
right?
the tree code, let me pull it up right now. I think the tree code mandate requires the city to do a tree inventory every 5 years. Let me look at it. Give me 1 second.
As I understand, Bryn, the goal is to revisit the same plots as a sampling. Is that right, Doug? Do our best to follow up on the same plots as a sampling across the city compared to the overall tree canopy survey, which shows the city's coverage.
Right. And
am I explaining that right?
The map that Dan here, that Margaret sent out a couple of months ago, showing the areas we were supposed to go out and drive around and look for trees. That was from the LiDAR survey.
Okay. So
the most recent one.
Yeah, unfortunately, now that I know this is the time of year we wanted to get it going last year when it wasn't able to happen. So hopefully we get a good arborist on board soon, and they can either supervise this tree inventory, or or the other option is the city puts out a request for a proposal from an independent, from a consultant to head it up. Because I know there were several of you who volunteered to assist with it too. And last year he started lining up interns to help with it. So we hopefully it can get going. So we just need to revisit it monthly and see if it can still happen this year. Okay.
Yeah, I think if it's going to be hired out to professionals, the incentive, I mean, it's obviously easier to do it in the summer, but if we're going to have student interns, it has to be done in the summer. Right, so if with professionals, there's less constraint on the time when it can be done.
Yeah.
Professionals should be able to identify trees.
Seems like such a neat opportunity for, yeah, it seems like such a neat opportunity for a college student who's studying forestry or biology or whatever. It would be nice if we could use them. So, but I'm afraid that would need to be lined up in the next month. Otherwise, good people are getting their summer jobs lined up.
Yeah. Well, what we found was basically that we found some wonderful people, but we realized that it takes a long time to actually get hiring done through the city's bureaucracy. Mm-hmm. And we hadn't hadn't planned for that in advance. We found the people before getting the jobs lined up.
Oh,
And I think Dick and I were both used to the way you do it when you're hiring grad students to work on a project. You know, you've got money, you hire people, they go out and work. And it doesn't work that way when you're hiring, when the city is hiring them.
yeah.
Dick,
Sandy,
am I-
did you have oh, sorry, Doug. Sandy, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I worked with the internship program for doing the tree survey for the city of Seattle back in like 2016. And it's exactly what you said. You need a lead time because you got to get the students to know for their hiring in April. I mean, they're applying in April. And then you have to train them to know the trees. So yeah, it can be done, but you're a little slow.
Yeah, it really needs to happen this month if it's gonna go that way. Yeah. Melissa Ann, I see you have your hand up.
I agree with Sandy, and you have to have a good support system, you know this, for interns, but I have a direct path into very eager younger students, high school, and even like college, those seniors graduating, going off, and there's a lot of interest. So, you know, this isn't for this year, but I do have, and then kids, I have connections with students at like UW Bothell and things like that. So if this moves forward as we build it out, I think I can get some messages out. You can put some things together. So there are ways.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, high school chem teacher, don't the students, the seniors have to do their volunteer work and need hours?
All students do. And, you know, I'm like count? You, Sandy, I'm having lots of ideas about, we could easily put together like work days, and I could deliver like many student bodies for 4 hours of service time or something, and they could just dig all the ivy that you want young, energetic bodies to dig. So there is service hour things. There's a number of ways that, you know, we'd have to have some of our structures, but it's not that formalized. I would sign the papers and bam, there they'd be with that. So we can get some amount of free labor here.
Yeah, and I'd like to get the young people in the city interested in trees, and, you know, give them some more knowledge about their importance. Okay, so if anything moves forward with this before the next meeting, you know, I'll ask Cameron to get in touch with all of you so we can, you know, if there's some way we can take any action without waiting all the way till the May meeting.
I think a good deal of what happened 2 or 3 months ago is we learned that I can't think of his name, but the city planner is way more comfortable contracting this kind of thing out rather than trying to have somebody here manage it, even if it costs more. And without an arborist, I mean, our hope was that the arborist, that Ashley could manage it.
Yeah.
But somehow that just didn't seem to happen. And then Ashley left. And I don't think high school students, I mean, you might get some high school students trained, but you need people working at it takes time to learn the trees, and it takes time to learn what you're doing with these things. It's not something you can bring a half a dozen high school students out for an afternoon and achieve very much. At least if it was my research, I wouldn't do that.
But it sounds like they would be perfect for things like Julia's project, when there's some, you know, when she has a day of pulling ivy or something. That would be great.
The other thing about the tree survey is it involves going onto a lot of people's private land. And as we've talked about before, we've got to get in contact with those people ahead of time. And I don't know if you're going to get high school students who want to start calling landowners and asking for permission. I mean, it's not the right kind of job in my mind.
Yeah, it sounds like they'd be more appropriate for ivy pulling and cage building and things like that. Yeah, Julia, are you waving?
For us to get access to land at McAleer, we had to have a written permission from each landowner. So it's not just a question of calling them up. You've got to, in fact, our first project, we had to have it notarized, but they dropped that requirement. But they have to sign a release for the city, and it has to go back to the city.
Okay. And is that kind of your permission with McAleer Creek? Is that kind of ongoing, or did it have a, was it finite?
No, I got permission for the whole length of the grant. But my point is that if you're going to have people going onto people's property to survey their trees, you're going to need landowner permission. And that landowner permission, I believe, will have to be in writing. A signature on the form that says it's okay for the city representative to come on the land. I can't see it would be any different for that than it was for us.
Right. But whenever we finally can get this going, hopefully we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you guys can, well, Julie, you've been on board since the beginning. You can look back at how it was done 7 years ago.
I wasn't here then.
No. Okay, I think can we move on to our next topic? Okay. Our next thing was 2 items from our work plan. The first one was about replacement tree plantings in the city. I think actually we didn't really mean replacement, did we, Cameron? I think what we were talking about was the like street tree program, using the tree fund to buy. Yeah, I think that was, yeah, it was that's a misnomer. This was about using the tree fund to plant trees, either sidewalk trees in front of people's homes or in city rights of way where there's space to plant trees. And we heard last time that even taking out money from the tree fund that may need to be used for a consultant to run the tree inventory. We still have, I think it was like $20,000 or $30,000 in the fund that could be spent on trees. And so we'd all agreed to kind of drive or walk around different parts of the city that we chose. That was a couple months ago, and just kind of scope out where we thought there were good places for trees or a need for trees. And what I've realized that I think, I mean, we could spend hours looking at maps together and debating where the good places are. I think what we should do is, if someone would graciously please volunteer to just collect our info, we can all, I think that would be the most efficient if we can just each type up streets or areas or a specific plot where you think a street tree could go, or a park that has space for trees. One person can compile that. And then what we need to do is, I think this is important because not only can we put in a proposal to the mayor, and he may be able to, according to Steve, he may be able to approve an expenditure on trees, or he could tell us it has to go to the council first. So there's that, but there's also the ST3 project. And as we heard from Steve, they, Sound Transit will probably, well, I'm certainly take down a lot of trees in the city in areas where they couldn't be replaced because the road's being widened. And so they will likely be able to pay in lieu of replacement, and that money would go into the tree fund for us to put trees elsewhere in the city. And so Steve said, if we can collect our findings on good places to plant trees, he can have that on hand for when this comes up. So all of that said, is there anyone on the tree board who's willing to be kind of the collector of our findings and put those together? Well, oh, thank you, Dick. The pressure of the silence. Okay. Oh, you're muted, Dick.
I may be getting in touch with each of you individually to try to spur some action on this. I'm going to be out of town most of the month of May. So it would be nice to at least compile some suggested ideas before our first week of May board meeting.
That would be great. Thank you, Dick. Okay. Our other item from our work plan was the outreach initiatives. So this was, if Bryn, if you want to talk about what's going on with that, this was related to our idea, Bryn's and Dick's great idea of a letter to new homeowners about the trees of Lake Forest Park.
Sure, Margaret. Yeah, it was, we've been having little discussions, Margaret, Dick and myself, and then about a homeowner's letter that would be delivered to new homeowners. John Brew from the, what's it called? The Stewardship Foundation, I believe. Lake Forest Park Stewardship Foundation has kind of tagged on to our discussions. And today, or yes, I guess it was this morning, I was able to finally get a letter draft sent to a few of these people regarding that issue. I think, I don't know how the Stewardship Foundation feels about it. And I think John Brew will probably get back to us on that. I think he's gone right now on a hiking trip. But yeah, I believe that, and I think probably Margaret and Dick probably agree with me that this letter should be kept as short and sweet as possible and be easy to read. Margaret had a good idea of including a coupon and that so that people hopefully would not just throw the envelope away. I don't know about, I mean, if we communicated with people, I guess that was Jolene's idea, to communicate with people, give them a heads up via email. That's fine. I can't do that right now. I'm just too overloaded. But for people to have a heads up that there will be a letter arriving and don't throw it away because there's a very nice coupon waiting. I think it also would be very, very useful and probably a nice thing to have it aimed at one of the businesses in Lake Forest Park. I think that would be very, very friendly of us. That's all I have to say. I'm quite disturbed by the fact that additionally that the city does not take this tree chopping down seriously enough, in my words, to my thinking. I don't think they take it seriously enough. It seems to me that people are getting away with murder, basically, and chopping down lots of trees. I know Dick sees this happening quite a bit in his neighborhood. And we have developers coming through. I know Randy's very disturbed about that, and I share that worry. Developers come in, build, and they're supposed to be planting trees to replace the ones they've chopped down. Your guess is as good as mine as to whether that actually takes place. But, and you know, we can talk all day long to try to educate people. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I don't see it doing much help. The reason I say that is I have a neighbor down the street. He has a heritage tree at the corner of his driveway in the front, and it's infected. And I mentioned that to him and gave him the name of someone that he could call, an arborist, have him look at it, and then to spray the tree with the, I believe it's a phosphorus spray, but I could be wrong on that. Anyway, it's a vitamin for the tree to help it kind of fight its own battle, so to speak, and become healthier. And he looked at me and he said, Bryn, I'm glad that tree is sick and I would love to have it chopped down. Now that tree is easily 4 feet in diameter and I don't know how tall, I mean, easily 50, 60 feet. that kind of person, that's gonna be a hard person to talk them into spending $800 a year to have the tree company, it's Davy Tree, they come out and spray the tree. We had one just on our property line that was sprayed a couple times. So that's $400 twice a year. I don't know. I'm finding it very, very disappointing in people that they think they can just come in and chop down a huge tree. That really upsets me. But there you have it. I think we can get this homeowner's letter out. I will say it here, like I said at this meeting with Randy. I wonder if we could, as concerned citizens, maybe as the tree board, but maybe just as concerned citizens, work on it. I don't know if we could get some sort of a community covenant, a Lake Forest Park covenant written, so that people understand that they cannot just willy-nilly go out and cut down a tree on their own property. I know some people are really insulted by that. But there are covenants in this city where people cannot grow a tree any taller than their own house rooftop. So why couldn't we have a covenant that comes the other way around? And if anybody wants to comment on the letter or the covenant idea, I'd be happy to listen. Thank you.
Thanks, Bryn. Those of you who are visitors, this was, I think this idea of a letter to new homeowners was inspired because some of the code violations recently where people have cut down trees without a permit, and the ones that Bryn was referring to, some really big trees right by Dick's house. We found out they were often new homeowners. So they're just, they're not necessarily malicious, they're just clueless. So Bryn and Dick had this great idea of when the city gets a new residence, as soon as the city knows that there's a new resident, which they do because of the water service, their water bill, that we have this letter that's all kind of in a positive tone. Welcome to Lake Forest Park. Here's some resources. Here's why the trees are so great. And by the way, here's a little bullet points. You can't say it in a nice way. You can't just go chopping down your trees. Here's a link to the city's tree code. And then, like Bryn said, my idea was that on the outside of the envelope, it's like, don't throw out gift certificate inside to the Lake Forest Park Ace Hardware for plants or whatever. So this was our idea, to reach out to these new folks and hopefully at least target that segment of tree choppers. Mandy, I see you've got your hand up.
Yes, I wanted to say how much I really love this idea as like a new resident to Lake Forest Park. I would have really loved to have gotten a letter like that when I moved in. Luckily, one of the things that, again, drew us to this area is sort of the knowledge of how much this city loves its trees. So hearing that sometimes people aren't coming in with that same knowledge already is a little sort of like shocking to me. And I think it's great to have that kind of outreach right out of the gate for new homeowners. And I also was thinking about what Bryn said about how educating people coming from just verbal means is only going so far. I think that part of what would be really nice in a letter like that would be like an invitation to some sort of tree related event, even if that's just like visiting some of our most prized heritage trees that came up, something like that, where there's a building of like, welcome to Lake Forest Park, welcome to the community, you're our neighbor, don't chop down the trees, but also come see why you shouldn't chop down the trees, have some sort of experience. And maybe that's something that you've already done or thought of, but that just kind of came to my mind when talking about outreach.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And I know Dick and Doug, did you work on it too? The tree walks of Lake Forest Park. But that's something that we've had. There's these brochures that are online too, doing walks like that take you to interesting trees. That would be something cool.
I
That's great.
revised one of them a couple years ago with Julia's help. And then I've been working with David Hepp to revise another one that is on my list of things to get done this month.
That's great.
So that there's a little booklet, for those of you who don't know, a little booklet of tree walks of Lake Forest Park.
Oh, I love it.
And it's
And
online too, isn't it, Dick?
yeah,
I think
well, so
I've-
what I've been working on is the booklet just describes a route, what you can see. But what I've been doing is walking the routes, taking pictures of the trees, and then putting together a file that on the city website that you can download, say, to your smartphone, and walk the route and see pictures of the trees and look up and say, oh, there it is. Because a lot of people won't know what tree is what when they're reading a written description without actually having some visual help.
That's so cool. And
Is
then,
there also an
sorry.
app? I know Seattle has something really similar, but it's like an app where you can interact and add things. I know that's kind of the next step, but that's the like,
That would be really cool. You want to build it for us, Mandy?
I could learn.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
And related to this homeowner outreach, I know on this topic of arborists or tree companies, I was talking with Cameron about this, and he looked at the regulations, and because I know a number of us have said, how can they still be permitted to operate in Lake Forest Park if they've broken the rules? Sorry, I'm going to quote you here, Cameron, but Cameron thought that it looked like the code was vague enough. It does say when companies first apply for, well, it says companies need to agree to abide by the tree code, something like that, but it's vague about whether that's just when they initially apply for their license or if it needs to be done every year. So Cameron and I were thinking that Steve is out of town. Steve's the city planner, but when he gets back, that's potentially just a procedural change. It doesn't have to be a city code change, that we could start if the city, if Steve agrees with this, and I guess he has to get the city treasurer to change the paperwork, but we can just have them every year. They have to sign that, yes, I've read the tree code and I agree to abide with it. And then we could have a list for homeowners of these companies are approved and they understand our code. So that's something that seems pretty easy to do. And I've got a message out to Steve asking how we could get that going once he gets back. Melissa Ann, did you have a comment?
I don't want to derail too much, but as also a new person into the community, I'm curious about what consequences there are for arborist companies who come in and do not follow, if there's fines on them or only the homeowners. As new homeowners with many large trees, I get arborists cold calling me, walking up, and they brag to me about how they know how to work with Lake Forest Park to be able to cut my trees down. So they've told me that they know so-and-so, I don't remember names, but, oh, I know so-and-so down in the city and we can take care. And I do have some trees that I have a dead tree that needs to come out, and I'm learning how to care for my trees. So absolutely, I understand sometimes we need to do things, but I don't know what consequences there are when they're actually promoting their skills at cutting down trees and having it go through Lake Forest Park.
I think you're talking about one particular tree service, most likely, which does go door to door, and I would avoid them like the plague. I call them the tree butchers. It's a public meeting.
Their prices were pretty high
mention
too.
their name. Yeah, let me finish, please.
Oh, sorry.
Not going to mention their name, but anyone that goes door to door, I would avoid like the plague. because if you have to go to door, you're not getting enough referrals. The good arborists around here, you can't get them to come in for 4, 6, 8 months sometimes because they're so busy. End of my rant.
Oh, it's a helpful rant, Julia, I think. Cameron, can you answer her question about, as I understand, or just correct me if I'm wrong, when there is a fine for illegally removing a tree, the fine is on both the homeowner and the tree company, is that correct?
From my understanding, it depends. While I've been with the city for around a year now, and for all the tree code enforcement cases that I've seen, if there is a fine assessed, then it is the homeowner's responsibility to pay it. That being said, while Ashley, our former city arborist, was here, we had some discussion about how we could potentially fine tree companies for removing trees, and she said that in the past there were fines assessed to tree companies, but that hasn't been at least while I've been with the city, I haven't seen any fines being assessed. I'm not sure the process.
I misunderstood. Huh.
I do know, I'm pretty sure Ashley mentioned to me that the code allows for us to fine tree companies. I'm not very familiar with the tree code, though.
Let's put that on next month's agenda just to get the word on how the fines work. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Who's liable, in other words, right? If it's
Yeah.
only the homeowner, there needs to be some accountability for the tree service companies as well.
Yeah,
They-
yeah.
If you follow the city's ordinance and you get a permit to remove trees, you have to use a arborist that is licensed to work within Lake Forest Park. My concern is that people who don't get permits don't know that and often will just get whoever they can, whether they're licensed to work in the city or not.
Yeah. I'm looking at the code right now. Sorry to interrupt you, Dick. Under 16.14.130 enforcement. This is chapter 16.14 of the Lake Forest Park Municipal Code is the tree code. For violations, subsection 1, liability for violations of this chapter shall be the joint and several responsible of the landowner and any person performing activity. So the code does state that both the homeowner and the person that cut down the tree shall be liable, held
I
liable.
don't remember in the past year any tree companies actually being fined, just homeowners.
Off the top of my head, no. But that being said, I wasn't involved with tree code enforcement. That was Ashley's role.
Okay.
And any sort of the specific, any of the specifics regarding the tree code enforcement cases after just me, well, yeah, any of the specifics Ashley would know. And I'd have to look through her files or the tree code enforcement files.
It was in force. It was in force in 2019 and 2020. Our neighbor, both the builder, the arborist company, the tree company, and the homeowner were all fined. However, I will also add that their response to the fine was to prefer to pay the fine and ask for forgiveness, because that they included that in their costs.
Being arborist.
Yeah, they included the cost of the fines. They looked it up, they evaluated it, they said it's going to cost us this much in the fines, therefore the project overall is going to cost us that plus.
This is the homeowner or the tree company?
It was the homeowner in combination with the tree company, as well as the builder. the construction company. So yeah,
So this
my
was
husband
like,
has things to say, but
am I
yeah.
understanding this right, Sandy? So this was
Yeah.
like people planning ahead. We're gonna break the tree
Mhm.
codes. We'll just figure that into our
Oh,
budget.
wow.
Yes, and I'm
Wow,
not
yeah.
sure who I'm not exactly sure who the inspector at the time was, but that poor guy, he had a bad couple of months. So yeah, I'm confident that our neighbor was one of the biggest violators in Lake Forest Park at the time as well, because my husband was there every other day. Poor thing. So
Wow.
yeah, somebody had mentioned something about penalties and, that ask forgiveness part and making it hurt. There is one, the outreach, but then, which I don't think the homeowners themselves would have bought into this if it had been phrased a different way.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying, like you said, it's not that the owners aren't doing it intentionally. So, yeah.
Except sometimes they are.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just hopeful.
I know that in other jurisdictions, like you'd mentioned, tree companies will factor in the code enforcement costs for removing trees without permits as part of like a cost of doing business.
Sounds like a criminal conspiracy, though, if you have a couple of businesses and a homeowner conspiring to avoid the regulations or to commit a fraud, right? That on a city regulation, and just write it off as the cost of doing business.
You had mentioned a list of approved people for your outreach flyer. That's another great way to do it. Not including people is that's a detriment to their business.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I
Well,
can't remember who said that, but great idea.
We when a number of us manned and womaned a booth at the farmers market last fall, and I think it seemed like a lot of the questions that we got were about people who needed an arborist, and they're wondering, who can we call? Who do you recommend? And we didn't have any sort of list then, so it seems like that would be really helpful. And then it doesn't have to be, we're not allowed to say we recommend these ones, but we can clearly say these ones have agreed to abide by our rules. Okay, well, please, ongoing and future tree board members, please just keep that topic on your radar. Let's see, our next item was an amendment on the, or an update on the tree codes amendment. And so this was for our visitors, the members of the tree board in December 2020, after doing a lot of work on it, presented some recommended amendments to the city's tree code to the city council, and they still haven't acted on them. Of course, things were kind of derailed with COVID, but they're finally back on the city's radar. Thanks to Council Member Larry Goldman, who's championing that for us. Larry, I see your hand raised. Do you want to let us know any timeline with that?
Yes, and I also wanted to give a bit of context. So your tree board did propose the changes in December 2020. And what the council had done is they referred it to the planning commission to take a second look and to just make sure that everything was consistent with other parts of city code. And that was on the planning commission's 2021 agenda. However, the planning commission didn't have time to get to it. They did put a huge amount of effort, and they did a good job on the accessory dwelling unit reforms. And so they just didn't get to it in 2021. So the decision was made in 2022 that the city council would just take it up directly. The original plan was for one of your members to speak at the second meeting in March. However, that was also the date for the police department's annual report, which ended up being fairly comprehensive. The latest update I have is from Planning Director Steve Bennett, which is that the goal is for you to be on the agenda for next week's City Council meeting. That's Thursday, April 14th. And I'm hoping that you've gotten an invite for one of you to speak at that meeting, and perhaps Cameron has an update on that side of things. But that's just a bit of background as to what was going on behind the scenes and why it's been a substantial amount of time.
So Cameron, do you, or I guess I should ask you, Dick, I know you had kindly offered to speak to the council on a different date. Would this week work for you, since you were very involved in those amendments?
Unfortunately, I have out-of-town guests in staying with us that evening, a friend who's in town to have knee surgery the next morning.
Oh.
And so I probably should pass on doing that evening. I know my wife would be upset if I were not there when.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Doug and Julia, I'm sorry that I can't remember if you guys were involved in that.
No.
No.
It predated me basically, except for this little discussion we had a month or so ago. It
Do you
predated.
feel
Dick, you know, it would be Zoom, so.
is that right, Larry? It would be on, it will still be on Zoom, right?
That's correct. The April 14th meeting will be. I was hoping, I just wanted to ask Cameron for if he has confirmation, because I don't want to mislead anyone and I don't want to officially promise April 14th because I haven't seen the agenda yet. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, you should plan for it, but I also want to ensure, and I can follow up with Director Bennett, but unless Cameron has more information.
So at our last planning staff meeting, Steve had indicated that April 14th would be the date that the council would be considering the proposed tree code amendments. And he had asked me to confirm that a tree board member would be attending to present the proposed amendments at the meeting.
So are those council agendas sufficiently precise that I would know exactly when I would need to be on Zoom to speak or to answer questions? If that were the case, I could probably do it, but I wouldn't want to have to be, you know, sitting at my computer all evening.
Yeah.
We have guests.
Generally, we can't give you an exact time. Generally, presentations tend to be towards the beginning of the meeting. It tends to go proclamations, presentations, public comment, and then discussion on ordinances. But would you be on at 7:05? Would it be 7:25? I wouldn't be able to give you that level of detail.
Yeah. And I didn't understand fully either previously when we talked about this, whether it would be, the expectation would be that someone would actually give a presentation of what the changes are in the tree board, or whether that would, the document would have been viewed by the city council in advance and say I would be there to answer questions, or perhaps both. But Larry, what do you think?
To give a parallel, when the city council took up the accessory dwelling unit changes, it was Director Bennett who kind of gave the PowerPoint and walked through kind of like paragraph by paragraph. We're changing this number, we're changing this rule. So I would expect, and again, Cameron, I don't want to step on your toes, I would expect that the board member's presentation would be more on the motivation. Why are you proposing these changes? What's the goal? And then it would either be Cameron or Steve Bennett to actually get into the nuts and bolts of, we're changing this number from 48 inches to 42 inches. Cameron, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, yeah.
But then if there were questions of me, that would happen right then. It wouldn't be later in the board meeting when you get to.
Yeah, so it would be that you would give a presentation and then city council members would be able to ask questions, and then we would move on to another topic, and you would be excused, yes.
And so I wouldn't necessarily have to create a PowerPoint. Somebody else would put something together that would show say the sections to be changed and that sort of thing. I could just talk about the motivation and why we felt a need for these changes.
That's probably a Cameron question as to who would make the PowerPoint.
I wonder if I'm putting you on the spot here, Doug, but even though you weren't in, since you have so much tree knowledge too, would I hate for Dick to have to do this when you've got a guest. Would you feel comfortable doing it, Doug?
Let me see when we're talking about the 14th.
Because if,
Is it
if
7
not,
p.m.
maybe
Is
we
that-
should.
Yeah, at 7 p.m.
I wouldn't want you to have to take your evening away from your guest, Dick. Maybe we can, if Doug doesn't feel comfortable doing it or isn't available, can we ask for it to be tabled till their next meeting? Unless Julia or Marty want to.
I would be happy to do it. I would prefer if it could be postponed to a later meeting. How often are these meetings?
In terms of dates, so there's the Thursday, April 14th City Council meeting. The next meeting is our Committee of the Whole, which would be Monday, I want to say the 25th. And then there's a City Council meeting on Thursday, the 28th. So if it doesn't take place on the 14th, then it would, and then I would either, sorry, yeah, so
petition to get it on another agenda, or could you just say it's there, we've done it?
I think so the agendas are set by the administrator and the deputy mayor and the council vice chair. And so I think you want a more formal process where they can kind of slot you into a specific date. But yeah, in terms of public city council meetings in April, it would be Thursday, the 14th, Monday, the 25th, and Thursday, the 28th.
I could do either of those latter dates, I'm pretty sure.
You want to do that or Doug, what did you think about going on the 14th?
I think since Dick was involved in doing it, he could probably explain more readily why things were done. I mean, it isn't that complicated,
Yeah.
but I think actually Dick wrote quite a large part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can we, how about we ask for that to be postponed, Dick? I mean, it's already been put off a year and a half. Another 2 weeks is.
No, that's
so
fine
you
with
can
me.
be
I
with
would,
your guest.
right, I would prefer that. I'd rather not do it on the 14th.
Okay.
Would you, after this meeting, would you like me to send an email, and I can CC Margaret and Cameron and then some city staff? Would you like me to send an email to people about, requesting a postponement? Or Cameron, would you like to take the lead on that? Or Margaret or someone else? I'm happy to be the liaison there.
You can, as far as I'm concerned, if you can do it, that would be great.
Okay, I'll try to get that email out tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And for the guests at the meeting, those proposed amendments to the tree code, I'm trying to remember where people could read those. Are they on the city's website, Cameron? Or if you contact Cameron, I bet he could send them to you if you're interested in reading them.
I don't think that the documents are on the city's website.
Okay, maybe since it's just a proposal. If our meeting guests contact you, Cameron, could you send them the proposal? Okay,
Of course, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, our last item of old business is an update on ideas for city incentives for retaining trees, which is Marty.
Thank you. This, for the people who've not been heard this discussion before, this arose several months ago when we talked about incenting people to plant trees and preserve them. And my task was to go out and research what other municipalities did along this line. And so I looked at a couple of different cities, Kirkland and I believe Seattle specifically, and they have pretty robust programs that include education, money for trees, and, you know, they're well developed. And the way this was phrased in our work plan, it seemed pretty vague to me. So I've been kind of struggling about where to go with it. Developing a full-blown plan like that would take, it's not something you can turn out in 2 weeks. So what I'm coming to this board for is some suggestions how we can focus this to make it useful for Lake Forest Park. I'm hearing a lot in this meeting and in previous meetings about needing some education on educating homeowners, providing information on caring for your trees, what tree to plant, right place. And financial incentives can come later because it takes a while to figure out what grants to apply for and get that money in place. So my thinking is that we should start with an education campaign, consolidating what we have in Lake Forest Park into one place. If we get one page on the website that says, here are all your tree resources, and perhaps pull in resources from other entities like UW's forestry program, WSU's forestry program, OSU, the extension programs that deal with forestry. And I'd like to hear what you think about that. If you have a different direction that you thought this should go, or if you have some other suggestions. If I don't hear anything, I'll just go off and do an education program.
I told Marty in my experience on the tree board, which is not terribly long, but what I've found seems to work, the way people seem to want to operate is we each kind of figure out what we're passionate about and do as much or as little with that as we can. So I told her, go crazy, do as much or as little as you can with this. But yeah, Bryn.
You're on mute, Bryn.
There you go.
I didn't realize that Marty was working on this. Maybe I should bow out and just scrap this letter, because that's partially what this is all about.
I should mention that. I think that's a great thing to incorporate into this program. I think that would be a good thing to include in it. So don't bow out. Don't do that. It's something we can definitely use and go forward with.
Yeah, it might be, for me, it would be helpful to know the process, I guess, of how, if you or we come up with some ideas, like looking at what other cities have done in terms of incentives to developers or to homeowners, how do we, maybe we need to get this from Cameron, like what are the steps? I mean, personally, I wouldn't even know where to begin. We can come up with all sorts of great ideas, but how do we get them to be part of the city's process?
Mandy, your hand up.
Oh yeah, Mandy's got a hand up.
Sorry, this is from a few comments ago, so I'm sorry to kind of backtrack a little bit.
Sorry if I didn't notice you.
No, it's fine. I was just thinking about, I also really am interested in outreach and education. I think this is just something really interesting and important for all of this. For using like a mailer, I think it's important to use like recycled paper and make a point of putting things on any sort of outreach that we're doing that requires paper. If we're saying don't cut down trees, we should be sending some sort of eco-friendly paper, or some that has a stamp on it that says it's compostable, something like that. I don't know, obviously I don't know much about the funds available, but I think that would be an important piece to the puzzle for education. I know that that's something I would notice if I got a mailer from the tree board and it was paper. I'd be like, this is pretty ironic, like you just sent me some paper.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, so that's kind of why I also mentioned some of the more digital things that we have available. I think outreach for young people is really important. I know that even, just getting kids really on board you know, there was talk about, you know, our chemistry teacher talking about, you know, outreach in the schools, but even younger than that, just making kids, maybe providing some programs for kids to get really excited about their tree. This is like the thing of their town, right? This is like one of the things that could get them excited. And they can educate their parents pretty well, pretty enthusiastically if we get them hooked. Anyway, I think that was a little tangential, but that was something that I was thinking about listening to the education pieces.
No, that's a really good point. And I think something that's occurred to me too is having it in different languages. And maybe we can, I'm sure it's not hard to learn what are the most prevalent non-English languages used in our city, because that may be another piece of new homeowners not understanding the rules, is if they don't have English as their first language.
Mandy, one comment on the ironic part of the paper. Even though it's 2022, the easiest way for the city to get in touch with people, as far as I know, is by paper, because the city has everybody's addresses, but they don't have everybody's email address. So we're sort of, my understanding is it's kind of hard to use 2022 technology for getting.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm fine receiving a mailer. I would just want it on recycled paper. I would just want it to be clear that there was a conscious effort to do. Yeah.
Right,
no, I agree.
Right. Yeah, and the city does have a pretty big mailing list of emails, because there's an e-newsletter that goes out every month, but that is not necessarily hitting the new homeowners. So maybe this is something else to include in the letter about, please make sure the city has your email address, you know, sign up for the e-news, because I've dropped the ball the past few months, but before that, Dick and I were taking turns writing up articles related to trees and putting them in the e-newsletter to try and educate residents.
We have many ways that we can reach out to people. Recycled paper for a mailer is great. We can also reach people online. We can reach out to the garden groups. We have garden clubs in Lake Forest Park. I mean, there's multiple ways to do it. So that's, we have to have some content to put in that outreach first. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll take what I do have, and see what I can come up with in the next month or so. Maybe I'll give you an update next month.
Thanks, Marty. I'm just making a note here. Okay. Okay, under our new business, I'm going to pop the additional thing in here first, that we need a new board chair, because I am, even though I've been honored and enjoyed being your board chair for only the past few months, it seems really weird for you to have someone who now lives in Briar as your board chair. So I have asked Dick Olmsted if he'd be willing to step in. Maybe it could be considered strong-arming him, or guilting him. But he has graciously and kindly agreed. But if someone else is dying to do it, maybe he wouldn't fight them over it. Is there anyone else who's interested in a runoff with Dick Olmsted? Okay, I guess we should do this officially, but do you want to say something first, Dick?
Well, I just say what I told you earlier, is that for the last couple of years, I've been asked if I would be interested in doing this. And I said, well, you know, while I'm still working, I probably don't have the time to put into it. And since I retired in January, I no longer have that excuse.
Well, thank you so much for letting me strong arm you into it. And I feel good leaving it in your hands.
I would say, I would just add that I think this is a responsibility that would be nice to see it rotate, you know, on a one-year term, and let everybody, you know, have a chance and not have it feel like it's a life sentence if you take it on. So that by way of saying, I would be willing to do it for a year.
Okay. And potential members, don't worry, it isn't really a life sentence. There is a term, but
It's supposed
guess,
to be a 2-year term.
what
What's
was
that?
that, Julia?
There's supposed to be a 2-year term, and it's supposed to change every 2 years or be reappointed. I mean, it doesn't mean it has to be a different person, but it has to be looked at every 2 years, is my memory.
Well, somebody should check
So you may be
that.
in 2 years, Dick.
You
But you could always just,
you can
say you
always
won't do
strong
it.
arm the next person after a year. So, well, can we make this official? Am I allowed to nominate as the chair?
You should
Sure.
call for nominations, I think.
Oh,
as
okay,
chair.
okay, thank you. Okay, a call for nominations for new chair of the tree board. And then can I?
I nominate Dick
Doug,
Olmsted.
okay, and second, there's Bryn seconding. Okay, all in favor of Dick as our new chair? Okay, thank you. I virtually passed the gavel to you, Dick. Thank you so much. Our next item of business was reviewing and approving the 2021 annual report, which Cameron sent to us. And I'm sorry, we're running low on time. There was, if you guys have that pulled up, were there any corrections? I know I did think of a few things that I thought should be added, but any corrections in what's already there? Okay, it listed our the champion tree contest, which we held for Arbor Day, the farmers market tabling event, and the Waterworks grant funded Julia's project. And I thought we can, this gets presented to the mayor and the city council to just give them an overview of what we've done in the past year. And so there were a few other things I thought could be mentioned. The e-news articles, the Ivy Out contest, and we should maybe say that I don't know if we should say that the tree inventory project was started but then aborted, or if you think it would be helpful for the city council to know that we want to do that, and it was, you know, an initial attempt was made, but it wasn't followed through on. Anyone have thoughts on including that to the mayor and city council? So that was new e-news articles, Ivy Out contest, and tree inventory.
The champion tree thing, I don't think there's any trees in Lake Forest Park that are 24 feet in diameter. So probably a mistake there somewhere.
Oh, it was, well, that was that contest they ran for kids for last Arbor Day, asking kids to find the biggest tree they could in Lake Forest Park. And so we called it champion trees. They weren't maybe the, you know, national definition
Right,
of
no,
a champion tree.
But the report says there's a tree that's 238 inches in diameter. And that's a little big.
Oh, oh.
It's bigger than several houses. Well,
Diameter.
Oh, just get the right number.
Okay. Can you correct that, Cameron?
Yeah.
And then add those three things I mentioned. Does anyone else have any of the other accomplishments of the tree board last year that you want to put in?
Did you say you did or didn't want to include the part about the abortive attempt to start the inventory?
Well, I was asking what you guys thought about that. Do you think it's maybe a good little reminder to the city council and the mayor that, hey, we still want to do this, or does that look more like, why point out a failure?
I'd go with the latter.
We spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
So I want to like it. I think it might be good if I provide like a little bit of background why I left the tree inventory and then the Ivy Out contest out. So I thought that since the tree inventory fell through, I didn't know if if it would have been the best thing to include in the report. There was a lot of like substantial work done to get to organize it, but since it wasn't organized, I felt like I didn't know if it would be good to include.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure what the point of this is besides keeping the city council and the mayor informed, but I don't know. I do think it's good to acknowledge that that several tree board members put in a lot of work on it. But if those of you who worked on those initial steps don't want it included,
I kind of find it hard to think of what we would say that would be positive, frankly. I mean, we tried, realized it's harder to do something in the city than it is in a biology department or forestry department. But then I don't know if there's much we could say that would really, I mean, we need to really get Steve to push forward on this since he's sort of taken it over.
yeah.
But I'm not sure the report to the, unless you want to say, and you know, we took initial activity, we did initial stuff on this, but then
we had our legs cut out from under us by the city.
Yeah.
by our own
About
unfamiliarity with bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Since we're running out of time tonight, is it okay if we just table that till our next meeting? And Cameron, you add those things on, and then we'll just vote on it on the next one. And
Margaret, was the Ivy Out contest one of those 3 things that you had on that list?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I know you and Julia worked on that.
Yes, and we gave trees as rewards to each of the 4 contestants.
So, I mean, that's worthwhile. I think this is good stuff for the city council and the mayor to know that we're, even when it's not fully successful. Okay, so we'll just look at those new things added and approve it next month.
I'll send a draft out as well,
Okay.
like in a week or 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Arbor Day event. I know Bryn was interested in taking that on, but now you have to leave the tree board. Bryn's had you pursued that at all, or should we hand it off to someone else? No, okay.
Yeah, please have somebody else do it. I just can't. I can't. Sorry.
It's okay. And in Washington, Arbor Day is actually next week, April 13th. So I wonder if I know that we have to have some sort of event or something to keep qualifying as an Tree City USA, right, Cameron?
Correct, yeah.
I mean, maybe
From my
say this, but-
understanding, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
But from my understanding, due to the pandemic, the Arbor Day Foundation has been quite lenient about the Arbor Day event that cities can hold. And it doesn't have to be on Arbor Day.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Their rules might change or might have changed. But from what I recall, in 2020, there was an event that was held in November or October.
Okay, in that calendar. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's hopefully, if you could please confirm that they're being lenient with that right now, and then hopefully we can just combine that. We can check that qualification with our as we pursue this street tree program, street tree planting. And that would qualify. Okay. And I'm so sorry. We're I hope you all can stay a few minutes longer because we still have a few more things to do. I'm not going out with my last meeting as the most efficient chair here. Sorry, we had a lot to talk about. We have Larry was going to give us a brief council update. Cameron's going to tell us about city arborist recruitment and Cameron's Frontlines. So do you want to take it away, Larry?
I'll be brief since I actually said most of what I wanted to say throughout the meeting. One thing I'll mention, yesterday, the Climate Action Committee had their first meeting. And one of the things they brought up was that they would like to liaise with some of the other commissions if the work they're proposing kind of touches on them. So if they're looking at trees and how it pertains to climate change and mitigation, they would be interested, that they seem to express interest in having a joint meeting with the tree board. And so I just wanted to bring that up and just put that on your radar, that, I mean, it wouldn't be for quite some time, but the potential for having a joint meeting with the Climate Action Committee.
Oh.
And that's basically the other stuff about presenting to the council and the switch to hybrid meetings. That basically covers my side of things.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Cameron, city arborist recruitment update.
So this will probably be very brief. So Director Bennett, right now, he's out of the office. He had mentioned he's been out of the office since last week, but before he left, he indicated that he was going to be reviewing a potential candidate with HR. I haven't heard anything from him regarding that. And there was a different candidate that was interviewed while Ashley was, there was a candidate, I can't remember the exact timeline, but there was a candidate that was interviewed in March as well. But yeah, sorry, I don't have much of an update to provide beyond that.
Well, and one of them is Miles, right, who's here with us tonight. So we don't, do you know what the next date is for something to happen with that, or will you not really know until Steve gets back?
No, I don't know. Steve hasn't really provided any information to me beyond that.
Okay, so we need him to tell us at the next meeting, unless something has already happened and someone's already been hired.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so meanwhile, I assume the city is still contracting with an arborist company to handle those duties, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so things aren't falling through the cracks.
No, and we've been sending any tree code enforcement cases, which I don't think there has been any, and then any major tree removal permit applications to our contract arborist for review and for development review as well.
Okay. And then the next thing is yours too, Frontlines with Cameron.
So
before you go on with that,
oh, sorry.
Is the process of getting new tree board members and perhaps deciding which three of those three who came to the meeting tonight and all made wonderful contributions are going to be appointed? Is that ongoing?
That's ongoing, yeah. I'm hoping to schedule interviews with the mayor sometime this month, hopefully within the next 2 weeks. I've sent him an update, an email with the applications that I received so far. I haven't heard anything back from the mayor, so I'm probably going to follow up with the I forget his title, the city clerk.
Well, I don't know if it's kosher, but I will push for fast action too, because I don't want to leave all these nice volunteers hanging, and they seem like they'd be great additions. So, and especially since I'm leaving, it makes me feel good to know that people are interested. So I want to make sure you guys get.
Can you? Is it possible?
Move on your applications?
Is it possible to substitute tree board nominations to the city council for the tree board presentation?
Ooh.
Because at this point we're only one half a person short of not having not a caucus. What do you call it?
Quorum.
Quorum, right? And it's really be nice to get a quorum plus.
Do you think that's possible, Larry? Does it have to go through the mayor first and then?
Yeah,
to city council?
So the process that we've established is that we receive applications to the tree board, and then we hold interviews. And then once we've sorry, I'm not very I forget the word.
Okay. I
I'm not
remember from when I
explaining
went
the best way, but
first
yeah,
the mayor and then the council, right?
yeah, once we interview, then the mayor indicates who he'd like to join the board, and then they get confirmed, or the mayor nominates the applicant, or the applicant to the board, and then the council confirms them.
Okay. But
So I
April
think
14th is still a week away, so
um,
maybe he could fast track it.
that would be really fast, since the agenda would generally be finalized by this Friday.
Okay.
I do think it might be feasible to aim for confirmations on the 28th. So perhaps, so the mayor would interview, and then the city council perhaps could interview the candidates on the Monday committee of the whole meeting. That's the 25th. Vote on them on Thursday, the 28th. And then that would still be in time for them to join the May 4th meeting as official members. Again, I can't promise that. I'm only one of 7, but I can put in that request when I'm sending out the email about the rescheduling the presentation on the tree code. I could also mention a desire to have confirmations by the 28th.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be great. If our guests are not scared off after tonight, still interested, that would be great to get them on board. So do you think, am I allowed to write to the mayor, to Cameron, and say, hey, talk to these folks ASAP, please? There's no reason why I'm not allowed to do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I guess
the entire meeting. I mean, that's a strong recommendation.
Yeah, I know.
Do this meeting.
2 hours and 4 minutes. So Cameron, did you have any other updates from your desk?
there's been, so over the past 2 months, I would say since March, there's been a pretty significant lull in tree removal permit applications. Knock on wood that it stays that way until we have the city arborist position filled. But beyond that, yeah, I don't have any other updates.
Okay. And for the guests at the meeting tonight, usually we're kind of in limbo now since Ashley, who was the city arborist, left. And obviously we're waiting for someone new to be hired. But when we have had an arborist at this point in the meeting, they would present to us a chart. Well, they'd send it out to us beforehand, that lists all the permit applications, the size of the tree, the category, how much is required to be replaced. So they would be giving us all that information. So, okay. Since we're already over, I know our last item is agenda for the next meeting, but I've already written down about 12 things and that folks have brought up or we've agreed we need to talk about next time. And so can I just say, if you come up with things that you want on the agenda, please email Cameron, and then he and Dick, your new chair, can discuss them to put them on the agenda for next meeting. Is that okay if we don't go through that now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll just say thank you all for letting me be your chair. It's especially since I don't have the tree knowledge that the rest of you have, but I've learned a lot from you, and I'm just really inspired to see all the knowledge and experience and passion about the environment in Lake Forest Park. So it's been an honor to be your chair for this short time, and I know I leave it in capable hands, and it's just been a pleasure getting to know you, even though it's been on a screen. So carry on the good work.
Well, Margaret, I think you've done a great job. So don't, think of yourself any less for the fact that you may not be the expert on trees. You've done a really good job, I think, of keeping us on track with activities and action plans that we need to be moving forward with. And I admire your ability to reach out and get the information and contacts of people that are needed when something has to happen. I was particularly struck with I think I was the one who made the suggestion that, gee, we could give away tree seedlings at the farmer's market thing. And the next thing I knew, you had made the contacts and arranged the trees and it was all set. So.
And there's yeah, I surreptitiously brought one of those Lake Forest Park trees to Briar.
Well, that's something I won't be able to do as well as you do. So.
Oh. Well, I'm only 10 minutes down the road, so.
I've already just sent you a text saying, let's get together sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Good.
To bring me up to speed.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you all. Oh, Larry.
I'm sorry, I just wanted, Cameron, I wanted to draw your attention. Randy Sabanga posted in the chat a comment since she had to leave regarding San Transit 3. I just wanted to make sure that you had a chance to read the comment.
Okay, thank you.
Cameron, can you leave the meeting open for a couple of minutes, please? I want to copy the comments so I have them saved.
Of course, I can also send you when I record these meetings, a text file is generated with comments.
Oh, okay.
The comments, I could send you that as well.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Doug, a second. Dick. Okay, I imagine that all are in favor of adjourning. Thank you all. Thanks for sticking with me.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you for all your.
Thanks, everybody.